Hello, and thank you for watching this regional forecast for the Northeast. I'm Andrew Pritchard, meteorologist with Nutrien Ag Solutions. The big story as we head through the weekend and into early next week is going to be the widespread cold across the Corn Belt into the Northeast. We've got freeze warnings where you see the purple shading here from South Dakota, southern Minnesota, Iowa, across the central and eastern Corn Belt into portions of Pennsylvania and New York down into the mid-Atlantic. So we look at temperatures right now, not so bad across the region. We've got 40s and 50s across Pennsylvania into New Jersey with 30s north from there. But we've got much colder air on the heels of a storm system right now that's brought severe weather to portions of the southern plains into the Ozarks, bringing some showers and storms to portions of the central and eastern Corn Belt into the mid-south. And then again, on the backside of that, much colder air making its way into the region. So we take a look at the next 60 hours, our radar reflectivity forecast here from the NAM model, the high-resolution NAM. We see this precipitation move in from the west as we head into the late to mid-morning. And enough cold air on the backside of the storm that maybe we even get some snow accumulating here across portions of northwest Pennsylvania, northern Pennsylvania, into upstate New York, and then across portions of Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine as we head through the overnight into Saturday morning. So again, as we wake up on Saturday, much of this happening during the overnight. This would be sunset tonight, taking it through the overnight hours to sunrise tomorrow. So across this corridor from Maine down through New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, upstate New York, portions of northern and western Pennsylvania, maybe waking up to a little bit of snow on the ground on Saturday morning, May 9th. Very late for this time of year to be getting some, rather robust snowfall up there. Maybe even some lake effect snow coming in on the backside, some snow showers as we head through the day on Saturday and Sunday, so be alert for that across upstate New York, northern and western Pennsylvania, and portions of New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine, maybe even some snow squalls during the day on Saturday. Here we are on Sunday morning now. We're watching another little clipper-like system make its way in. This could bring some light precipitation, some light showers to portions of the northeast region as we head through Sunday night and Monday. Total precipitation from the high-resolution NAM model taking it through Sunday morning at 1 p.m., Sunday afternoon, that would be. Again, you see the first corridor here from storm system number 1 making its way through Friday into Saturday. Again, maybe waking up to that little swath of snow across this region as we wake up on Saturday morning. Where could the snow accumulate? Well, again, we'll just take a look at the forecast here. Not talking about a lot, but maybe a couple areas getting here a trace, maybe a couple of inches from portions of northern Pennsylvania through upstate New York into Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine. Portions of Maine, that's where we could get a little bit more. That's where we're talking about more than 10 inches of snow in some of the higher elevation areas up there. We'll take it just a little bit further into next week. Again, watching systems just kind of pinwheeling around this trough anchored across the Hudson Bay into the Great Lakes. Let's go ahead and look at this in motion, taking it through Sunday. This is where we kind of left off with the high-resolution NAM model. This second system comes through on the backside here, not bringing so much in the way of snow, but some cold rain to portions of Pennsylvania and New York as we head through the day on Monday. We'll quiet that down as far as precipitation goes then as we get to Tuesday, Wednesday, and beyond. We're going to start a pattern change, though, one that's going to take the storm track from the northwest to southeast, reverse that. We got southwest flow across the middle of the country, so we're going to begin developing storm systems here across the central and southern plains, and then having those likely track through the Corn Belt into the northeast. Much more typical pattern for this time of year. Let's talk about overnight lows, though. We do keep those freezing conditions in place across some areas here as we head all the way into early next week. So overnight tonight, what you're looking at on this map is our overnight low temperatures tonight into tomorrow morning. That is the numbers that you see, and then the color shading that's associated with the temperature anomaly. So how far from what is seasonally appropriate for this time of year are we? And you see the blue and the purple shading, that indicates temperatures 25, or I should say 20 to 30 degrees cooler than average. We should have overnight lows here in the 40s and 50s across this region, with those highs in the 70s, and that is absolutely not what we have as we head through the weekend. Temperatures in the teens and 20s with freezing conditions all the way into the mid-south portions of Kentucky and Tennessee. What about Saturday night into Sunday morning? Still seeing those freezing conditions widespread across the northeast. They go a little bit north on Sunday night into Monday, but then another wave of cold air has overnight freezing temperatures, again, fairly widespread across the northeast as we head into Monday night and Tuesday. Now, I mentioned a pattern change. What did that look like? Well, what we've got right now is this big ridge being kind of pinched up toward Alaska, and then a trough here anchored across the Hudson Bay into the Great Lakes. That's keeping kind of cold air just pinwheeling from the northeast, or from the Arctic, across Canada and then into the northeast and the Midwest. What happens, though, as we get to the end of next week? Well, I've kind of spoiled the story here, taking it all the way into May 17th, and now we're establishing a trough over the west, ridging now across the midsection of the country, and that's going to lead to a warm-up and a reversal in sort of how we're getting our storm systems across the country and where we're getting our precipitation. So temperature, the anomaly forecast here, will take it through the weekend, watching those purples and greens where we've got temperatures 20 to 30 degrees cooler than average, widespread across the central U.S. all the way into May 13th and 14th. I've kind of got May 14th circled in my head as the day that this pattern breaks. And again, we start to resume troughing in the west with ridging in the east. That's going to allow for a big warm-up across the central and eastern Corn Belt into the northeast region. I mentioned it's going to do something to the precipitation, though. The pattern right now, pinwheeling around that area of low pressure across the Hudson Bay and the Great Lakes. That's keeping little clipper-like systems that are rather moisture-starved, bringing precipitation from the northwest to the southeast across this corridor here. Not only through that corridor, but that's kind of our primary corridor as we head through the weekend into early next week, and you can kind of see that here as these systems track from northwest to southeast. As I pause it here, Monday, May 11th, this is when we start to transition, and you're going to see that transition here with precipitation beginning to show up here across the high plains in the form of showers and storms, and then begin to work its way from the northwest to from the southwest, to the northeast in the form of heavier precipitation. And that's because we're seeing more convective precipitation. What I mean by that is a thunderstorm activity and potential severe weather instead of this cold stratiform rain, these cold, steady rains with snow flurries mixing in. We'll be talking about more in the way of heavy localized precipitation, the potential for thunderstorms across the region. And again, the reason for that, as we head through the next couple of days into early next week, watching this pattern with troughing, dragging cold, dry air into the region from the northwest. You see kind of the flow there as I just kind of go back and forth here of the May 8th through the 13th time frame. You see our flow is featuring cold air, cold, dry air being swooped in or dragged in from the north. But as I go ahead and just take the drawings off and then take us through the May 13th through the 18th corridor, now we're starting to draw moisture northward from the Gulf of Mexico. So instead of pulling cold, dry air down from the north, we're drawing warm, humid air northward from the south. And that sets the stage for a very different pattern, one that is not predominantly dry across the Corn Belt. It's one that is featuring a corridor of wetness from the southern plains across the central and eastern Corn Belt and then into portions of the northeast region. Pennsylvania and New York are going to be especially featured here. I would not be surprised if we're talking about severe storms across the eastern Corn Belt into portions of the northeast as we get into the end of next week, into next weekend, right around May 15th through the 19th. We'll end with a look at the temperatures, high temperatures here over the next week. I'm going to take it a little bit further than the 5 days I typically do, just to kind of set your expectations and give you a little hope here as far as when these temperatures are going to begin to break. We'll look at our Friday highs, very cold across the region. Even colder there, you see that pink shading, high temperatures near 40 for the day on Saturday. Just brutal. I mean, that is 35 degrees colder than we should be this time of year across that region. A little warmer Sunday and Monday. Not much, though, keeping those highs in the 40s to near 50 degrees, but there are some mid-50s on Wednesday, back to near 60 into the lower 60s on Thursday, and that warmth will continue to expand across the Corn Belt into the northeast region as we head beyond that. So finally looking lower seasonally appropriate in the temperature department, but potentially talking about more in the way of thunderstorms and the opportunity for some severe weather as we head into the last half of May. Have a great day and a wonderful weekend.